Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kid Stories Podcast. I'm Phil Bechtel. Let's get into a shout-out. I would like to give a shout-out to Desmond, Dorian, Mateo, and baby Satya, who are all big fans of the show. I think if you were all characters in the stories, you'd be the dragon kids of Haven Woods. Each of you would have a specific dragon type you could transform into. Desmond is a fire dragon, Dorian is a lightning dragon, Mateo is an invisible dragon, and baby Satya would be a golden dragon. And you would all live in the mysterious Haven Woods, where you would protect the surrounding villages from beasts and bandits. Thanks for listening, Desmond, Dorian, Mateo, and baby Satya. Gabriella Jenkins and her sister had a birthday recently. She let me know about that by sending me a recording through SpeakPipe on the Kid Stories Podcast website. Thanks for that, Gabriella. I hope for your birthday you got a bucket of ice cream that never ends and a wand that makes there be a roller coaster to everywhere you want to go and a family of pocket cats that lives in your pants and a big bucket of goofballs. Gabriella, I think if you were a character from the stories, you'd be a battle cat commander. And you would ride on the back of a warrior tiger with a crystal sword that shoots beams of pure energy. Thanks for listening, Gabriella. Today's episode, we are picking up where we left off when the kids entered the criminal lair of Elena, the dragon egg thief. Elena led them deeper into the facility, past chambers they could only glimpse. One filled with what looked like laboratory equipment, another containing rows of smaller incubation boxes that glowed with different colored lights. "Now," Elena said, turning to face them in what appeared to be her office, "let's talk business specifics. Matthias says you're from Magic Fix in Wolfwater? That's quite a distance to travel for supplies." "We were looking to expand our inventory," said Nora. "There's only so much for sale around Wolfwater." "Admirable dedication," Elena said, settling behind a wooden desk. "Tell me, what exactly do you repair at your shop? What kind of clientele do you serve?" Finn jumped in. "Mostly household items, heating crystals, cleaning enchantments, cooking stones, the usual residential magic maintenance." "And you need dragon shell powder for household repairs?" Elena's tone had grown slightly sharper. "Amplification work," Pip said quickly. "Some of the older crystals require boosted power to function properly. Dragon shell powder's the most effective amplifier available." Elena nodded slowly, but her eyes were calculating. "Indeed it is. Tell me, how did you hear about our specific operation?" The question hung in the air like a trap. Nora felt sweat forming on her forehead despite the cool underground air. "Word of mouth," she said carefully. "In our business, you hear about who has the real quality products versus the diluted substitutes." "Mm-hmm." Elena picked up a quill from her desk and began tapping it against a ledger. "And what's your typical monthly volume? How much amplifier powder would you need on a regular basis?" Before any of them could answer, hurried footsteps echoed from the corridor. A man appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "Boss," he said urgently, "I searched their room at the inn like you asked." Elena's expression sharpened. "And?" "Nothing. No money. No banking documents. No letters of credit. Just travel gear and some repair tools." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Elena set down her quill and leaned back in her chair, studying the three kids with cold calculation. "How interesting," she said slowly. "Young business people traveling days from home to purchase hundreds of gold worth of rare materials with no money?" "We can explain," Nora started. "I'm sure you can," Elena cut her off smoothly. "But let me save you the trouble. The only place you could possibly have that much money is back in Wolfwater, days away, which means you never intended to buy anything today, which means you're not customers at all." Brutus, who had been standing quietly by the chamber entrance, stepped forward as two other men appeared in the doorway behind him. "The question is," Elena continued, standing up from her desk, What are you really doing here? And who sent 3 children to spy on my operation?" The walls of the underground facility suddenly felt much more like the walls of a prison. "We're not spies," Finn said desperately. "We really do just need amplification powder for our shop." "With what money?" Elena asked coldly. "The money you didn't bring? The money that doesn't exist?" "We were going to arrange payment later," Pip said weakly. Elena's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Payment later? For dragon shell powder? From children?" She shook her head. "Brutus, what do you think? Do these 3 strike you as legitimate business partners?"
"No," Brutus said bluntly. "They strike me as kids, who are in way over their heads."
Elena nodded. "My thoughts exactly. The question is, are you simply naive children who've stumbled into something dangerous? Or are you working for someone who has a particular interest in our operation?" The men in the doorway stepped forward, and Nora saw that they were carrying rope and what looked like blindfolds. "Wait," Pip said, reaching slowly in her satchel. "We can prove we're legitimate. We brought samples of our work."
"Keep your hands visible,"
Brutus ordered sharply. But Pip was already moving. Instead of pulling out magic repair tools, her hand closed around 2 glass vials. One vial was a smoke bomb, and the other a vial of dizzy dust. She threw them as hard as she could at the stone floor between them and Elena. The vials shattered. The smoke bomb instantly filled the room with swirling smoke, and the smoke kicked up the dizzy dust, sending it swirling right along with it. The kids knew to cover their mouths and nose, hoping they wouldn't be as affected as the guards. "Run!" Nora shouted, though she couldn't tell which direction her voice was going. The disorienting effect of the dizzy dust hit immediately. Shouts filled the air as everyone in the chamber began stumbling around, confused and wobbly. Nora felt like the floor was tilting under her feet, but she forced herself to move toward where she thought the exit was. "Stay together!" Finn's voice came from somewhere to her left. "Can't see anything," Pip called back. Heavy footsteps thundered around them as Elena's men tried to locate them in the magical fog. But the powder was working exactly as intended. No one could see more than a few inches in any direction. Nora bumped into what felt like a stone wall, followed it until she found an opening, and stumbled through into the next chamber. Behind her, she could hear Elena shouting orders. "Seal the exits! Don't let them get to the surface!" "This way!" Finn's voice was closer now. Nora reached out blindly and felt his hand grab hers. "Where's Pip?" she gasped. "Here!" Pip's voice came from right beside them. "The smoke's starting to clear. We need to move fast." They were in one of the storage chambers they had passed through earlier, and Nora could see the smoke effects beginning to fade. The thick smoke was settling, and soon their pursuers would be able to see clearly again. "The exit's this way," Finn said, pulling them toward what he thought was the right direction. But as they reached the chamber entrance, they found Brutus blocking their path, looking dizzy but determined.
"Dead end, kids,"
he said, drawing his sword. Nora didn't hesitate. She pulled out her crossbow and fired a bolt directly at Brutus's arm holding the sword. The bolt stuck in his bicep, and he dropped the sword and fell to the ground. "Go, go, go!" she shouted. They pushed past the wounded Brutus and ran for the stone steps leading to the surface. Behind them, Elena's voice rose above the confusion. "Rex! Stop them!" The rumbling roar they had heard earlier suddenly became much louder and much closer. Heavy footsteps shook the ground as something very large began moving through the facility toward them. They reached the stone steps just as Rex appeared behind them, and Nora's heart nearly stopped. The enslaved dragon wasn't terribly large, only about the size of a horse. His scales were a dull copper brown, and his eyes held no intelligence or warmth, only a cold, programmed obedience. Nora recognized this dragon as a copper red. They were known for having the hottest fire of all dragons. easily able to melt practically anything. "Up the stairs!" Finn yelled. They scrambled up the stone steps 3 at a time, hearing Rex's claws scraping against stone as he tried to follow them up the narrow passage. The opening was too small for him to get through easily, and the dragon ended up scrambling up the steps on his belly, snapping at the children's heels as they fled. The kids burst out into the night air as a spout of flames shot out of the opening behind them. Each of them tossed another smoke bomb to slow the guards. They kept running, not slowing down until the abandoned farm buildings were lost in the darkness behind them. Finally, when they had run so far their chests hurt and their legs were sore, they stopped for a moment to catch their breath. "Did we really just escape from a dragon trafficking operation?" Pip panted. "With information about where they're keeping dozens of stolen eggs," Finn added. "And now they know who we are and where we live and where we work," Nora said. "They'll probably move the whole operation before we can bring help." In the distance, through the trees, they could see little flickers of torchlight as Elena's guards continued to pursue them. "We need to get back to the Dragon Highlands," Pip said. "Fast!" "And hope the wild dragons believe our story," Finn added. "And hope Embers still—" Nora couldn't finish the sentence. "Look up there, that farmhouse," said Finn, pointing. "I bet there are a few horses in that barn there. We need to steal them, or borrow them, for a bit. We'll never get to the dragons in time on foot." "But our horses are at Millhaven," said Pip, confused. "And so are Elena's people," said Nora. "For all we know, the place is crawling with her minions, especially around the inn we were staying at." The thought of stealing horses was completely foreign to the kids, but they realized it was the only way. The 3 of them silently slipped into the old barn and trotted the horses out into the night air. Once they were away from the farmhouse enough to make some noise, they sent the horses into high gear. The trio thundered on their stolen mounts toward the Dragon Highlands. The end. Thanks for listening, friends. The website is kidstoriespodcast.com. Send all your drawings and things to kidstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Adios.